All right, let's for the camera, let's have you state your name and the instruments you play with Moonalice.
My name is Sless. I play guitar, pedal steel, and bass occasionally.
That's what it says here. Okay, so far, 1 for 1.
All right.
Very good.
Batting 1,000.
All right. You come to us from Baltimore, is that correct?
Originally.
All right. You're born in Baltimore?
Yes.
All right. And where were you raised?
Raised in Baltimore.
Oh, all right.
And took a liking to the Bay Area. Started getting involved in the Bay Area music scene and making contacts out here, and knew this is where I wanted to be, and eventually happened.
Barry, when did you know that music was something you wanted to be involved with?
Oh, let me see. I was playing in a house band at a bar in Glen Burnie, Maryland, 4 nights a week. And at the same time got an offer to be put in the management trainee program for Toys R Us to be a manager. And I had to make a decision. And I decided I erred on the side of music.
But before you were able to play 4 nights a week with a band, you got picked up a guitar.
I did, and I didn't know. I didn't have any illusions of grandeur or anything. I, just thought, all right, this would be something fun to do, and do gigs here and there. Didn't think it was necessarily going to be my path, and it kind of chose me.
Was it rock and roll or country or what?
Kind of country rock. Yeah.
Were there certain musicians, bands, artists that on the radio or at home on the record player that got you thinking, hey, I'd like to do this?
The country rock stuff I was hearing was like Coco, Flying Burrito Brothers, that kind of stuff. That got me interested in the pedal steel. Before that, I played guitar maybe about 2 years before I was playing pedal steel, and I was into Hendrix and Cream and all that kind of stuff back then.
Did your parents encourage you or discourage?
They encouraged me. They always told me, you probably won't do this for a career. You need something to fall back on. But
nice Toys R Us store down the block.
That's right. But they were very supportive, and once I started going out and doing gigs, they came out. My biggest fan.
Oh, nice. And you went on to college, did you not?
Just 1 year.
Where?
Community college.
Oh.
Kingsville, Maryland. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Majored in music and would be sitting there doing my music homework with my guitar in hand, and I'd just start jamming, and it was just like, I think I just want to do this. And, and then I started getting gigs, and,
And out here in California, you work with Cowboy Jazz.
We toured out here. The band is a Maryland-based band.
Ah, okay. All right.
And we had 2 records out on Rounder Records in the early 80s. And they became really popular out here when K-Fat was around out of Santa Cruz. And so we were getting a lot of airplay out here, and we started traveling out to the Bay Area 3 or 4 times a year.
And was it at that point you chose to stay in California?
No, I knew I wanted to be here, and I was getting ready to get married, and I remember bringing my wife to be out here and saying, this is, where I want to, after we get married, I'd like to move out here, and if we have kids, this is where I'd like to raise a family. She never really wanted to make the move, so I continued to tour out here, and my life, was kind of in Maryland, and wife and kids were there and everything. But it was very frustrating spending a bunch of time out here and then going back there to somewhere where I felt like I wasn't really connected. I felt more at home out here. And so it wasn't until we split that I moved out here. And by that time I'd been involved in like 4 different Bay Area touring bands. And I just knew that I needed to be out here for my career.
And when was your move here to California?
2000.
In 2000. Okay. Not that there wasn't also a vibrant musical scene in and around D.C. and Maryland, correct? Just a different...
Yeah, it's a different thing, and for what I do, I felt like I'd gone as far as I could in that scene. I was, trying to take every little pickup gig I could just to make ends meet, and having to work other odd jobs in health food stores and stuff like that to pay the bills. And just things got a lot better when I moved out here, and was where my music was.
Yeah. How was it that you fell in with ruffians like Phil Lesh and David Nelson, Kingfish?
When I was touring out here with Cowboy Jazz, I think it was in 1986, somebody brought Matthew Kelly to our show at the Last Day Saloon in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And he sat in with us, and I were swapping licks. He was a harmonica player, still is. And we hit it off. And then when they were looking for a guitarist to do a tour, him and I had exchanged numbers. He called me. So I got involved with him. It was through him that I met David Nelson and started playing with him. And through David that I met Phil, or was brought to Phil's attention. Somebody turned Phil onto the David Nelson Band CD.
Mm-hmm.
And back in 1999, when he first started playing music again, after the Grateful Dead and everything, he was going out, he was doing like weekends at the Warfield with different groups of musicians. And he asked three of us from David Nelson Band to play with him in July of 1999.
Mm.
So that's...
And there, you're doubling up on both lead guitar and pedal steel,
right?
And maybe some other instruments.
No, just
those
guitar and
two.
steel.
Oh, okay. What was the connection then to Moonalice? And if I'm jumping too far, past, then you go ahead and add additional.
No, I mean there's other stuff in between, but I don't know how important it is. With David Nelson Band, I think we had done some local shows, and our keyboard player couldn't make it. And I think Pete and I had met somewhere. So, and David knew Pete. Actually, David, I think, as I hear from both of them, Jerry Garcia always thought that those two guys should be playing together. Mm-hmm. And he expressed that to both of them. So they both knew that. So we were looking for a keyboard player to fill in for some gigs. And we got Pete. And Pete was involved with Roger in his old band, the Flying Other Brothers.
Yes.
And towards the end of the tenure of that band, they were looking for a guitar player because their guy had some other commitments. Mm-hmm. And so Pete had recommended me. So that was how I got introduced into that whole scene, which eventually became Moonalice.
Right. Okay. With Moonalice, certainly it's not a traditional band. There is one you've ever been part of, but still, what is it like when you're together at rehearsal or a session or whatever, and it's time for musical input? When a song is introduced, are you part of the creative process?
Yes, it's all completely communal. Everybody has their say and their input, and everybody's input is respected and considered equally.
And have you yourself brought in songs of your own?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay. And are you on board with the idea that there's no traditional, the old path of musical bands was to have a record label, that have a traditional manager and agent, and go out there and try to hit the charts, get radio airplay, all of that. Are you on board with the idea that the rules are completely different?
I am.
What about that appeals to you?
It just allows for a lot more freedom and creativity and ability to kind of chart your own course. Mm-hmm. And for new ideas that perhaps haven't been thought of before to be considered and implemented.
Was that from the phone? And what about Moonalice is special to you? We're thinking in terms of, for example, the core values of the band, the ethics of the band, or the ethos. The fact that the band doesn't just do nightclub shows and concert venues, but also does a lot of benefits, visits to veterans' homes, I believe, free shows in general. How's that blend in with your own set of values?
Very well. I enjoy all that. I feel like we're doing good work in the community. I really appreciate Roger's creative ideas and his motivation to do good in the world and through music and through artwork, through all the poster artists that he's hired to make the beautiful Moonalice posters. Mm-hmm.
Is it scary to you that unlike the other bands, many of them anyway, when you just went to a nightclub and played, that was it, now whatever you do can be transmitted live instantly to a global audience through couch tours?
Not really, to be honest. I don't really think about it that much. I just try to go out and do what I normally do, and not really, pay much attention to that. For me personally,
you're not thinking who's watching, or the fact that there are millions that could be watching.
Maybe I will now that you brought it up.
Yeah, not going to be nervous and hitting the wrong notes and everything. Oh, sorry about that. Okay.
Oh, the wrong notes are going to be in there, whether or not I'm considering that.
Were you part of the '09 album?
I was.
So what was it like in the studio working with T-Bone?
That was a great experience. I really enjoyed working with him. I enjoyed both some of the hands-on stuff that he did, but also there was a lot of hands-off stuff where he just would sort of put out a concept to the band, but was really looking for creative input from us and leave the things wide open, for us to be creative. And a lot of times if he thought that we were approaching it a little too traditional or a little too by the rules, he might try to break that up a little bit and encourage us to, throw the rules out the window. And I like that.
And his creative process would come on after he had heard what the song was and what your proposed arrangement. You'd run through the song, of course, a couple of times. Right. And then he would come in and say, well, what do you think about this bridge? How about adding this here? He would do that to you?
Yeah, he would do stuff like that. He would have ideas about the feel and the groove and the mood of the song. But he never told anybody specifically what to play.
Okay. And have you also been part of the band during the Jack Cassidy times when he would pop in and join in? And G.E. Smith?
Right.
Okay. Tell me, if you would, about your experiences working with those fellows. Let's start with Jack.
Well, Jack was not in the band regularly. He kind of came and went. And it was a different thing. It's hard for me to really think back specifically to that because it's been a few years now. Yeah. And the chemistry has evolved to a different thing without those guys. How do I mean, it was great playing with those guys, and it was an interesting experience.
Did it bring any kind of particular luster, just star quality, because they were names that people knew instantly or more instantly than other members of the band, or you saw G.E. on television during certain years of Saturday Night Live?
I don't really know. I mean, I personally didn't feel that way. There may be people in the audience that felt that way and that maybe came out to see it because they remember seeing G.E. on TV or Jack with, Hatuna or Jefferson Airplane or something. But it didn't necessarily hit me that way.
Okay. What are your? I believe that there are probably a couple of hundred songs in the playlist, the repertoire. How many are active on any given concert?
There's some that have come and gone, but each concert is different. Each show is different song list, different set list. We try to not repeat. If we're playing a run of a few shows, we try not to repeat too many songs that we did the previous night. Sure. For the people that are coming to several of the shows, or for the people that are watching over the internet.
But you could play, and your band members, your bandmates, could call on any number of up to 100 songs.
I haven't added them up. I'd say tops right now 100. As far as songs that actively we could pull out and be comfortable playing.
Are there tunes that are fan favorites that you've got to get in there?
Not every night. There's no song that we play every night, but there's ones that we know. If we play that particular song, it's like that'll be a great closer or a great set closer, and get the audience into it.
Could you tell me what Dave's Way is? Who's Dave?
Dave is Dave Way is his name. He's an engineer from LA that we met through working with T-Bone. Fantastic studio engineer. And he comes up to the studio in Woodside, and we record songs with him, and basically just leave it all in his hands, and he mixes them. He sends us the mixes as he's working on them to see what we think about them, if we want anything tweaked, if we want any levels brought up or brought down. And after that, we just sort of leave it in his hands, and he masters them, or has them mastered, and we do a little CD.
And the reward for his good work is that the entire box set is named after him.
Right. He had it his way.
That's a nice bonus.
He did it his way.
Speaking of naming things, what to your knowledge, is the real reason for the name Moonalice?
As I recall, we were sitting around a kitchen table trying to figure out what to call the band, and different things were popping out, and somebody said, "To the Moonalice." And I think somebody else looked up on the internet and said, "Party taken." Like maybe there was a band by that name or something in Iowa or whatever. And we just shortened it to Moonalice and looked it up, and there was,
There's a band called To the Moonalice, but not a band called Moonalice.
I believe that, if I remember correctly, something like that.
Yeah. What are your own ultimate goals with Moonalice as a musician? And when you think about, do you play with other bands? Let me ask that first. I'll start with that again. Do you play with other bands?
I do.
And what are your goals with this particular band, with Moonalice?
Well, to continue reaching out to more people, and taking the party to where they need it the most. Playing in some spots where we're well received, and maybe they don't get a whole lot of music coming through, which always turns out to be a fun thing. We play in Alaska once in a while, and we played in Hawaii, and places where they don't get a lot of touring bands that come through, and they're really hungry for the music and really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And just to continue to grow musically, and continue to stretch out and break rules.